Hey Gooners, how we doing? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, a bonus episode coming to you, an hour after we published the last one. The last one was a look back on the game against Port Vale, the 2-0 victory away from home in the Carabao Cup that saw Arsenal secure their place in the fourth round, I think, of the competition. So you can go over and check that one out if you're looking for reaction to that game. We talked about Eze's debut goal, not debut goal because he didn't score in his debut, but first goal for Arsenal is how I should have phrased that. We touched on that and various other things as well on what was a kind of nothing night, really. So it isn't the longest episode, and it's probably not the most entertaining episode we've ever put together either, or controversial or anything like that. But we are here and we are back with the second episode of the day because there has been some breaking news. And this is such big news that I didn't feel we could leave it until tomorrow's episode. Now, I'm glad it dropped now rather than this afternoon when I'm going to be on the move. So it's given me the opportunity to just hop on and bring you guys some reaction to the story, and the story concerns William Saliba. Now, William Saliba and Bukayo Saka are the two players who Arsenal have been working on new contracts for in the background for quite some time. Two players that lots of us would love to see stay here for a long, long time. Two players that have been key in the rise of Arsenal, albeit we're not completely where we want to be just yet. But the journey that we've been on, these two guys have been right at the heart and center of it. There has been a little bit of nervousness and anxiety within the fan base because while everybody keeps telling us that actually the chat sort of from within the club is everybody's quite confident and quite happy that these deals are going to be agreed and we're going to move forward, until you hear that it's actually done, until you see those photos of the player sitting at that table with a pen in his hand, with Mikel Arteta over one shoulder and Andrea Berta over the other, you are going to be a little bit worried, a little bit wary, and a little bit on edge. And I have to say, listen, Bukayo Saka's an Arsenal man, and although we're not talking about his new deal today, and hopefully it's not too long before we're back here and discussing one for him, I don't worry as much about losing Bukayo Saka as I did worry about losing William Saliba. Saka's got that kind of homegrown connection to the club. He's always been sort of the apple of everybody's eye at Arsenal. You know, when he first broke into the team, people loved him. When he grew and showed everybody what he could do in that kind of wide right position, everybody again sort of essentially fell in love, didn't they, with the player, because he's just improved significantly, really, really quickly, and he's established himself as one of the most dangerous wide players in world football. So that one, I kind of always felt pretty confident about that. But with Saliba, I just worried because the start to his Arsenal career was a little bit turbulent, if we're being honest. Here was this French talent that was very, very highly rated over in France, but whom was seen as maybe not being quite ready to make that move across to the Premier League at that point. Arsenal come in, spend around about £30 million to sign him from Saint Etienne, but loan him back to Saint Etienne. He then has a loan spell at Nice after he returned to Arsenal, and Arsenal failed to register him properly, or decided not to register him within the group of players that they were going to use. And then he has this loan spell at Marseille, which really does kind of make him a man and turns him into a top-level centre-half and puts him in a position where he's ready to come in and slot in at Arsenal. And I always feared and I always worried that somewhere down the line, that, I don't want to call it mistreatment, but that those decisions that Arsenal took to look at William Saliba and go, this guy's not quite ready. That period of time where we had him at Arsenal Football Club, but we were frantically looking for a kind of a loan offer to get him out the door again before he had that really sturdy and strong season with Marseille. And I think I've got that the right way around, in that point where we sort of failed to loan him out and he spent a bit of time just kind of hanging about before going to Nice. I think that was before the Marseille loan. Correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat, but I think that's how my memory's remembering it. Anyway, whatever the case, he never he never felt loved at the beginning from an Arsenal point of view. Now, it turns out that in the end, it was tough love. And it was Arsenal's sort of looking at the player and going, yeah, you know what, this guy has got it. He's got the talent. You know, he can certainly develop and improve, but he's not quite there yet. And he's not going to get the minutes that he needs here. So he's better served going somewhere else. I recall it just all being a little bit cold between him and Arsenal Football Club. At least that's how it seemed and felt from the outside. He goes back to Marseille, or he goes and spends some time at Marseille. He does brilliantly, and he comes back and he's ready. And from then on, he's never really looked back, has he? Like, he's been, a key part of the team. He's been one of the best centre halves on the continent, which by default means in the world, over the past few years. And he continues to grow and he continues to develop and he continues to mature and all the rest of it. Now, we're in a situation where, we've built this really, really strong team. But I think as Arsenal fans, there is that little worry in the back of your mind of, well, if we can't get over the line, how long do we keep hold of the likes of William Saliba, of the likes of Bukayo Saka? More so the likes of William Saliba, players that, as I mentioned, have had sort of an up and down turbulent relationship with Arsenal in the past and who aren't homegrown, who aren't from here, who don't feel that affiliation with the club maybe as strongly, or at least didn't, because I think he does now. I think he really does feel a part of the family. I think he really believes in Mikel Arteta. I think he's a part of the probably best defensive unit in Europe. Sorry, I'm mincing my words. I'm all over the place today. And here he is, and he's comfortable and clearly, contrary to what some people's opinion is, the players in this group believe that they have what it takes within the ranks to go on and achieve the biggest things in the game. Because if you don't, you do not sign a new deal at Arsenal, especially a deal as long as this one, based on what's been reported. And we'll bring you the ins and outs of it as per David Ornstein in just a moment. But, if there is this kind of worry and anxiety at Arsenal within the group about whether they can get over the line, well, we're not seeing that with regards to how many players that could get moves somewhere else tomorrow, especially in Saliba's case. We keep hearing about Real Madrid sniffing around and all the rest of it. It's amazing to me that they don't feel that way at all. And it gives me reason to be calm. It gives me reason to believe. Also, if, Mikel Arteta was the major problem at Arsenal and wasn't allowing the team to go out and do what's required, and, there was a feeling that he was holding the team back from achieving its maximum in terms of the potential, then why would all these players be putting pen to paper? They believe in the project. And I know that we haven't got over the line with one of the big ones yet, but they believe in it. So why shouldn't we? Is kind of my way of thinking and looking at it. That doesn't mean that you can't question decisions. That doesn't mean that you can't be disappointed with certain results, certain outcomes. Of course you can. But in the grand scheme of things, this is a big kind of reminder of the fact that those that are living and breathing it every day and are responsible for delivering, they really do trust that we are moving in the right direction, albeit maybe a touch slower than we would have liked, but we are moving in the right direction. And William Saliba putting pen to paper here, I think, is huge. Now, in terms of the information that we have around this, we don't have information with regards to salary. Now, I'd imagine that William Saliba is going to be on a big old salary because he's one of the hottest properties in the world when it comes to centre halves. No question about that. He's 24 years old. Okay, so you could argue that he hasn't reached his peak yet, but he's performing at this unbelievable level already. We don't know what the salary looks like exactly. I'm sure there'll be some reports around that in the coming days, and we'll keep our eyes peeled. And if anything emerges on that, we will share that with you. But as far as David Ornstein's reporting, this is a 5-year deal. A 5-year deal. Now, at 24 years old, you don't put pen to paper on a 5-year deal unless you are really, really confident in the club that you're currently playing for. You only put pen to paper on a 5-year deal if you believe that this club is absolutely 100% worth giving the best years of your career to. And William Saliba feels that way. which is obviously huge. Now, let me go through what David Ornstein has had to say on this, and then we'll tackle some of your questions and thoughts from the live chat, because there was a really interesting angle posed by one of our listeners right at the start of the show, and I've just favorited his comment so I can come back to it in a little bit. But you know what? Before we move on, before we start unpacking David Ornstein's article, and then we move on to kind of responding to some of you guys' questions and thoughts from the live chat. If I could just remind you, if you haven't done so already, leave a like on the video. It really, really does help if you're with us on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well if you haven't done so already. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, get involved as well. Leave us a review. That stuff really, really does help. Check us out on Patreon as well. Patreon.com/The Chronicles of a Gooner. The link for that is in the description too. So let's go through the article then. So Arsenal centre-back William Saliba has agreed to sign a new contract with the club, and the 24-year-old is expected to be signing that in the coming days. The Athletic reported back in May that Arsenal had opened contract talks with Saliba in the hope of retaining him beyond June 2027. So he'd gone into the final 2 years of his current deal. Again, though, like that's quite significant, isn't it? Because yes, he's in the final 2 years, and we always talked in the past about that being the kind of ideal time to go into negotiations over a new deal. But I think the fact that he's committed quite early is a good sign, because, you know, with 2 years to run, he could have quite easily dragged this out, or less than 2 years, just slightly less than 2 years, a year and 10 months, whatever it is. He could have dragged this out a little bit. He could have, toyed with Arsenal a little bit in a bid to get what he wants. Maybe he's got what he wants, and that's why he's fine and happy to commit. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's got to be the case. But you know what? He's worth it. He's worth every penny, whatever that salary is going to look like. Now, he had been the subject of some interest from Real Madrid, but he did say back in March that he was happy at Arsenal and wanted to win trophies with the club. He was asked whether he will sign a new contract back in July, and he said yes, hopefully. Of course, there's nothing now, but there's a good conversation with my agent and the club. I don't know why it's gone dark in here all of a sudden. So yeah, look, he's always been open to the idea of signing. He's always been open to the idea of committing his long-term future to the club. It seems like he's got the terms, but I think from a footballing perspective, this is a massive boost for Arsenal. Because extending someone like Saliba's contract, it's equally as impressive as some of the business that we did in the summer that people were really excited about and were really kind of talking up. Here we have this guy who, has been great for us, but maybe doesn't feel the same loyalty to Arsenal as some of the others because of, how his Arsenal career started, or at least he maybe shouldn't feel that same level of loyalty. Yet he's been brought into the club. He's been brought under the wing of the manager and everybody else at the football club. He's been constantly evolving, developing, progressing, improving. And whatever happened in the past, it seems to have just kind of been forgiven and forgotten. And he's now in a place where he feels at home here. And maybe he now understands the reasons for those decisions at that point. Now, I got to be honest. I had my reservations about Saliba at that point when we were sending him out on loan. I didn't really have an issue with us doing that. I didn't think we handled that period where he wasn't registered very, very well. And I feared that was going to completely damage the relationship between the player and the club. Thankfully, that hasn't been the case. He's come back in. He's realized that, this is a great place to be right now. And, he's happy to commit and he's happy to move on and to sign with Arsenal with a view to achieving all the things that, we set out to at the start of the season and that he's kind of had his eye on since becoming a real key part of this team. So I'm really, really pleased with this. I'm really, really pleased with this. And look, I got to be honest, because I'm looking at the live chat right now, and I did say the other day that I'm not going to react as much to the negativity in the live chat as I have done in the past, because it can take away from the show, and I realize that. And I've had a lot of our most loyal listeners kind of say, Harry, just ignore it, like don't get too involved with it. But I do think like it's funny to me that even when good news comes out, the people that want to amplify some of the negative stuff are there and ready and waiting. And I don't understand it. Like, there's nothing negative. There's no way you can spin William Saliba signing a new 5-year deal with Arsenal into something even remotely negative. And you keep talking about Mikel Arteta in the chat, Arteta this, Arteta that. Ultimately, if William Saliba don't believe in Mikel Arteta, he doesn't sign this contract. Because let me tell you this, there will be Arsenal fans out there that don't believe Mikel Arteta is the man to take Arsenal over the line. And if that's the opinion you hold, that is fine. But he is not going anywhere in the short term. He remains Arsenal's manager, and I'm confident he will be for a while. Now, I can't see things going dramatically south at the minute. I still think that this season, despite questions in the early stages, partly because we've had a really difficult, start to the campaign, I still think that, we can have a really, really good season. And I still think that we will have a really, really good season. So, we just need to chill for a minute, chill for a bit. Rumble says, Harry, you can glorify Mikel Arteta as much as you like. I'm not glorifying him at all. I've jumped on today's pod on this bonus episode to talk about William Saliba and the fact that William Saliba has put pen to paper on a new deal at Arsenal. You cannot deny that Mikel Arteta has had even the most minuscule role in this. He has played a part. If Saliba didn't believe in him, he wouldn't have signed this contract, okay? That's the reality of the situation. Why the chat box is dominated by people talking about Arteta, I'm not really sure. We should be talking about William Saliba. We should be talking about the fact that with him and Gabriel at the heart of our defense, we've got a really strong platform, and a platform from which we have the potential to go on and win silverware. We got to do it now. That's the next step. That's the next phase. I completely get it. But there's no way that you can spin William Saliba putting pen to paper on a new deal as a bad thing. It's just baffling to me how people are seeking to do that, even with a good news story. There was a really interesting point made earlier in the show by Theo. Now, listen, I don't agree with this, but I do want to be balanced in the way that we analyze and discuss things. When points are made, even that I disagree with, in a respectful way, I'm more than happy to have the conversation and have the discussion. Now, Theo says this: Harry, why am I looking at this news from two sides? On the one hand, it's great news that he's signing a new contract. But on the other side, I'm thinking he has no ambitions to win trophies and a poor mentality. If Arsenal were, I don't know, struggling to get into the Champions League, there was the odd sign here and there that they could compete, but it wasn't anything consistent enough to kind of really believe in or be confident in, I would understand where you're coming from. But Arsenal have been there or thereabouts for 3 years now, okay? Last season, which was packaged up as this huge disaster of a season, we reached the semi-finals of 2 competitions. We went to the League Cup semi-final, not as significant for me, but we did go to the Champions League semi-final, which was huge. That was massive. And we finished second in the league. Okay, more points off of the top than we would have liked. That was in part as well because of, maybe a shift in focus as the season went on. I appreciate all of that. You could also argue that Liverpool took their foot off the gas a little bit as a result of the way things were shaping up. Fine, cool. But Arsenal aren't far away enough for me to sit here and accuse William Saliba of having no ambition to win trophies and a poor mentality. If Arsenal were miles off, like I've seen lots of players in the past at clubs that I thought were miles off, sign contracts on mega money because they were comfortable. There is nothing to suggest that William Saliba has agreed to this new deal at Arsenal purely because he's comfortable and purely because he's going to earn a lot of money. Like, the team are close enough. They're not there yet. I acknowledge that. But they're certainly close enough for you to make, a strong case that William Saliba feels and believes that he can win at this football club. And for you to, I think, be able to dismiss claims that he's just signing for the money and for the comfort, and actually he's got a poor mentality. I don't really think that comes in. That comes into the sort of discussion here in this instance. If we were 4th, 5th in terms of where we've been finishing in the last few seasons, never really making it past the last 16 of the Champions League, and he was like, "Oh, I want to live in London," and all the rest of it. I'd get it, but I don't think I don't think that's the case. Theo says, I should point out I'm looking at it from a life perspective and personal point of view, not Arsenal related. Yeah, and I get what you're doing. You're trying to kind of look at it from the player's end. Fine, and I don't want to have disrespect for Theo in the comments, right? Because I said that as long as the comments are made respectfully, we'll chat about them and we'll discuss them, and he's done that, to be fair. But I think Martin makes a good point in response where he says, Theo, you can't remove Arsenal from the equation, even if you remove your passion from it. I think he's absolutely right. Like, to sign at a club like Arsenal when you're as talented as William Saliba, like, let's say that, I don't know, for argument's sake, I don't know, Christian Mosquera signed a new deal today. I know he's just joined, so it's not a very good example. But you could look at that and you could go, okay, Christian Mosquera isn't regarded right now as one of the best centre-halves in the world. He's been bloody impressive at the start of his Arsenal career, but he's not in that bracket of William Saliba right now. So, if he signed a new deal, you could say, well, he maybe doesn't feel that he could push on at that stage. And people would say, he's doing that because he's young and he's still breaking through with a view to maybe moving on somewhere else. I think when you're Saliba and you are 24 years old and you are already regarded as one of the best centre-halves in the world, you have got your pick of clubs. And we know that Real Madrid like him. We know that Real Madrid have probably bid in his ear. We know that Real Madrid will be looking at his contract situation as they do with everybody else's and going, don't sign, don't sign, don't sign. And it'll either be, we'll come for you on a free, or we'll come for you when there's a year left and we'll get a significant discount on the potential price. Real Madrid do that. But if Real Madrid are in your ear and you decide to sign for Arsenal, that says that you believe in Arsenal. That says that you're happy at Arsenal. That says that you think Arsenal have the ability to go on and achieve all the things that you want to achieve as an individual in your career. So we've had the Arteta discussion pretty much all week. We've talked about tactics all week. We've talked about whether or not he's the man to get us over the line all week. I understand that that's an ongoing conversation that is going to prop up probably many times between now and the end of the season. But I don't understand how we're trying to turn what is clearly and obviously a good news story in that William Saliba is committed to Arsenal for the long term into some sort of point scoring competition. I just don't get that. Jamie Grant, thank you very much, mate, for your donation to the channel. Really do appreciate it. He says, Arteta, in the critical moments, chooses to contain and control. Don't lose rather than playing to win. And in the big moments of magic, win. And again, like, I understand that is an opinion a lot of people will have right now. And that's fair, I'd imagine, based on what we've seen in recent weeks. I thought that at Old Trafford, we just didn't play very well. And I put that down to first game of the season, a little bit rusty, haven't got everybody available. You just get through it. You get the result. You go home. Against Liverpool away, I certainly thought that we could have been braver. Not necessarily, in my view, from the start, but we should have been a bit more proactive in trying to sort of find that winner before it got to a point where the game started to get away from us ever so slightly. And then Dominic Szoboszlai found the top bins from what felt like miles away from the goal. Man City, I didn't like the starting lineup. And I've talked about that. So people that claim that I don't criticize, you're wrong. But yeah, I don't really get why we're having a go at Arteta here on this episode, or you guys are in the chat, when actually this is a good news story and it shines actually a very positive light on him. Because if you don't like your manager, if you don't believe in your manager, you do not sign a 5-year deal somewhere, do you? You don't. What else have we got in the live chat? Let's take a few more of your thoughts and questions. Big hello to Goon Gang, who's joining us from the Virginia Beach Gunners. Good to see you, mate. Lots of you in the chat. Goon Gang, just on that point about the Manchester City game, he says an early Haaland goal will change your tactics every time. And he also sort of references, I think, was this a Mike Tyson quote? Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Okay. Right. What else do I want to say on this before I start to wrap up? I mean, again, just to kind of reiterate the points I made earlier in the stream to kind of sign out and wrap up. Thank you for joining us on this bonus edition. By the way, if you haven't done so already, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel and all the rest of it. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please do leave us a review. But yeah, overarching thoughts on this. Really great news, really positive news. We've been confident that this news was coming for quite some time, but there's nothing like a David Ornstein bomber to just give you that confidence that something is moving in the right direction. If that deal is going to be signed in the next few days, which is what David Ornstein's reporting, then I'm sure we're going to get an announcement in the not too distant future. And whatever way you spin this, this is good news. Top player. Signing on at the club, it shows that he's got a confidence and a belief in what we are doing and in what we are working towards. We haven't got there yet, and that does create frustration and debate, and I understand that and I appreciate that. But sometimes there are moments where if you hold a certain opinion and you're really, really strong on that opinion, there are probably moments where you should just wait in the corner, because what you believe and what you are saying is being contradicted right now by this news. You might not believe in Mikel, and that's fine. And I've got questions over some of the things he does. Absolutely. But my God, this is big news, whatever way you look at it, whatever way you try and spin it, it's positive news. And the fact that somebody like Real Madrid, who've been lurking in the background, hoping to convince William Saliba that that's the place for him, have essentially been left with, I don't want to say egg on their faces, because that's probably dramatizing it a little bit too much, but have been left in a situation where now it's going to be almost impossible to get William Saliba out of Arsenal in the next few seasons. And that's a sign of how far we've come, because we've been able to create an environment where that is now possible. Andy says, I have big reservations about Arteta, but you look at all things, it's really not far off. And that's the thing, isn't it? And that's why I think that the Saliba stuff and this idea that he doesn't have ambition because he signed this deal, I think is completely wrong. If we were far off, if we were in Man United's position, a club that pays massive wages but isn't anywhere near competing at the top end, and you sign a long-term deal when you're supposed to be one of the brightest talents in your position in world football, then I'd look at you and go, do you have the ambition? Do you have the drive? Or are you happy to just kind of be comfortable? When it comes to Arsenal, though, I think it's very, very different. Look, there's loads of Arteta comments again in the chat. I'm not going to get into it any more than I already have. I've already bitten too hard because that wasn't what this episode was about. We were here to talk about William Saliba. The two are intertwined in that if Saliba didn't believe in Mikel and didn't think that this was the right place for him, he wouldn't be signing this deal, full stop. So whether you think Arteta's tactics are good or bad, whether you think he's the man to get us over the line or not, that's up to you. But you cannot deny that he's had some role in William Saliba's decision. And so at least today, you might not do it any other day, but at least today, give him, Arsenal, and especially Andrea Berta, his flowers, because he's come in and just made us so much more efficient in our dealings. And that is with regards to transfers in, that's with regards to contract renewals. When he came in, it was about sort of helping bolster the squad and improving the squad to a point where we could go again and hopefully be closer and in the end get over the line. But the renewals would have been pretty high up on his agenda as well. And renewals are not always that straightforward. So yeah. Anyway, right, going to leave it there. Thank you all so much. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, leave us a review. And if you want to check us out on Patreon, you can do so too. I'll see you all on the next episode. Until then, take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful day up the Arsenal. Goodbye.